let's bring this down to businesses. Let's connect thinking and businesses a lot more than we're already doing. So I'm coming from this perspective where I believe that, businesses have something to give, to sell products, services, value to deliver.
Yes.
And one of the core entities of that process is communication.
Yes.
And we're having this conversation day before yesterday, and you talked to me about language.
Yes.
And that's how also a part of this process. And for me, I feel like if more businesses learn how to, communicate properly, and how I say this is communicate meaningfully.
Yes.
Because I feel like if you scratch out story out of communication, it's meaningless. But if you bring story, just the same way I scrapped out story out of a man's life, it's meaningless. Yeah. So if you scrap out story out of communication, the communication becomes meaningless. So I feel like if more businesses learn to communicate meaningfully, then their products could be received with purpose. So their intention could be truly received. It's like intentional.
Assuming that their intentions are good.
Yes, assuming that it goes across as it should. Plus, there's scientific research that proves that story actually penetrates the human mind more than any other form of communication. Just sinks in, because human beings are story receptive on a natural basis. Like, we just want to receive more stories.
Human beings have an unlimited capacity to receive ideas.
Unlimited.
Yes, you can't. There's no. You know how your phone says storage full.
Yeah.
Especially if it's an Android phone, like I do.
Stop it.
Yeah, it's like always.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how big.
Memory
it is.
full.
Memory full. The human being has no capacity.
Yeah. I'd like to replace your word idea for story.
Yeah, feel free, because an idea exists whether it's been heard or not. Do you get? It's like if a tree fell in the forest and nobody heard it, did the tree fall down? You know that popular question?
Yeah.
An idea is an idea, whether it's heard or not.
So when people say, "Oh, I have an idea," really,
it's like I received an idea. Really.
More, it's more like I received, because idea pre-exists before you even
people
are able to.
Ideas, people are secondary.
Yeah,
that's why people are now vessels for
ideas, because ideas are like thinking.
Yes,
it's stored in thinking.
Yes.
And what were we talking about just now?
Okay, so I think you gave.
Wait, I was giving you the ideas for how I was talking about how important it is for communication to be part of business processes. And I was going to draw that down into how, because that's the core of what we're doing in our business, teaching businesses how to tell stories, how to be story driven, how to think with stories. Because we feel like that's just going to bring them more meaning. But when I said this day before yesterday, you corrected me on something, and
I just thought differently on
I embraced that thought, and I really, in fact, this morning we're having a meeting about that in the team, and I really was just teaching the team what you taught me, how that if we focus on just teaching businesses story, we'll be teaching. I'll use your words. We'll be teaching the wrong thing. We won't achieve anything really. Because we'll be focusing on something. We should be focusing on the source itself.
Yes.
Teaching people to think.
Yeah.
Explore that for me, because maybe we'll talk about language a little bit more, and just let's see how story, communication, businesses, and language work together.
Okay. So we started with talking about meaning. So recently I was traveling from Abuja to Jos with a couple of friends. My friend was getting married to another friend, and so as we were moving, somehow in the course of our conversation, we had some topics that covered what you called the humanities and arts and people and sociology. And someone said something about something, and I said, I think the reason why we're not is language. And the lady said, which is French, said, I don't think it's language. At that point, I was like, what is language to you? And she said, language is how we use words to communicate. I said, no, that's not what I mean. What she was describing is the secondary phase of language. The first phase of language is not what comes out of you. The first phase of language is what's inside you. So the first phase of language is meaning in a being. So the configuration of your ideas is your language. If that configuration changes, your language has changed. So people will hear the effect of a changed configuration in you, which is how you think. So how you think is your language. Your understanding, your sitting understanding as a being, as a person, is your language. When that is heard on the outside, it's your language, but it's not first what is heard. So basically, I just chipped that in. I hope it was helpful in our conversation then.
It will be helpful now, definitely.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So for businesses, and this is where I think we got a shift. So I and my co-founders, last year during the lockdown, my mentor was doing something really. My mentor is like an older brother, and Dr. Toluwani Miyoshino was his name. He had this stuff running on The Guardian. It's on Business Day, rather. He was teaching businesses how to reposition themselves from inside. And what we did was, okay, this is vital. How can we use this as a team? So we sat down and realized that the configuration of what we call business needs to shift. And so this is why I think it's more important for your audience to understand the need to shift internally before they start shifting how they are telling stories.
All right, yeah.
Yes. Because it's just like what I said about the light. Your story is first your thinking before it is your gist.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on how you gist,
how about focusing on how you actually think?
How you think. That's your real, that's your true story.
Yeah. Your true story.
Yes, that's your true story. And if that story is true, then your gist will be true.
Exactly.
You get. It's like telling a child, no, don't be a liar, or say the truth, or say the truth. But if the child doesn't have the truth, or the person doesn't have the truth, what would they say? Whatever even if when they are quoting things that are true,
it will still be a lie.
It's contrary to who they are.
Exactly.
Yes.
I agree with that so much.
So the business has to focus on what is true. So they have to position. They have, there's a Hebrew saying, a Jewish saying, that was popularized by the writer of this book, Startup Nation. He said, have two Jews and you have three opinions. It's like, there are two of us here, Bilal, David.
Yeah.
But there's another mind that exists because we're working together. So when two people are working together, there's a third
opinion.
Just like, there's a third opinion, there's a third entity. Just like marriage, a husband and a wife, then there's a marriage. That marriage is the idea, that's the resolution of the both people.
Yeah.
Now, in a company, there's something called an organizational mind. That is the aggregation of the governing ideas in the people that lead that organization.
That organization.
Yes, or that team. Now, that is who they are. That mind.
That third mind. That mind. Collective thinking. Yes. Yeah.
That's what drives the group. That's what drives the group in any civilization. That's what drives the group. So, focusing on how to get that mind to have first the orientation of truth seeking and not seeking money is primary.
Yeah.
Storytelling should not be the medium for making greater sales. Storytelling should be the medium you deploy for transferring greater meaning to people. Then profit making becomes a consequence
of that
higher transduction of meaning to people.
So people should, instead of seeking more sales through mastery of storytelling, should be seeking the ability to be able to figure out for themselves first what that true, authentic story is.
Yes.
And when they've mastered that, they would see that there is out of that course, there is an effect that is created in their products, their communications, their gist, their processes, everything. They would even attract the right employees, the right team.
Everything's going to be
affected because that internal space has been affected.
Yes. But this is not it's not something you do overnight. It's something that requires something called humility. And that humility is a popular term, but its meaning it's not popular. Because what is humility?
It's not saying, well done, sir.
No, it's not greeting 14
bending
times
down
in the morning.
And obaling.
Humility is not first how you are externally. That is not even how you are externally. Humility is your posture with respect to truth.